Hello guys, in this video we will work with passing dynamic variables to a component and displaying the values of those variables on front end. We will use admin configuration to control the variable values. So we get output according to admin modifications. So let us get started with creating the routes.xml file and defining our route inside our module. Specify the route ID and the front-end name, and specify module name, no underscore module. Our next step is creating an index controller. Create controller and index directories. Now create index class. The controller should implement the action interface only. We will not extend the action class because it had been marked deprecated. Create result page factory protected variable. Add page factory dependency and assign its instance to result page factory variable. Then create result page class instance by calling factory create method. Set page default title. No image module and return result page instance. Now go ahead and create layout file. View, front end, layout. Now create layout XML file. Specify one column layout to display the single column and create the body node. Refer the content using reference container node. Create block with template class. Name the block knckout and template file will be component.html. Now go ahead and create the template file. Create templates directory and then specify component.html template file. Now add some content to the template. Specify the ID cam-component and add data bind attribute. Create scope binding cam-component-scope. Now add template rendering tagless binding. Create Magento init script and specify the component inside it. Add ID selector cam-component. Specify app module and then add component key. Valid should be components. Specify the scope cam-component-scope. Now specify your component. Now underscore module js view and then specify name of your component km-component. Now add config as an object array and specify the component template km-template. Now go ahead and create the component. Create web.js view and then component km-component.js. Add UI component dependency. Extend the UI component. Create defaults object array. Inside this object, we will create properties with predefined values. Then it will be easier to assign the past values to them without reassignment from constructor. We have added properties, title, content, btn text, and then is primary, which will be used to decide between the class names. Now we need to create a template. Create the template directory first. Now create the template file km-template.html. Create h2 element with the text binding and assign the title property to it. and content to paragraph HTML binding. Now add CSS binding to the div element and specify a primary class based on arbitrary expression. Display secondary class if its primary is false. Now create button element with attribute data binding. Specify type button and assign btn text property to title. Now add class data binding and specify action class. Next, add CSS data binding and copy both primary and secondary classes with their arbitrary expressions. Now create span element with text binding and assign btn text property. Flush Magento cache and remove static and generated content. Now open the module page and the page rendered as expected. We get a heading, content, and the button. Now inside component change its primary property to false. Flush cache and clear the static content. Reload the page. Now button class has been changed to secondary because we modified the its primary property and set to false. Now inside the JSON object under config object array we will specify the properties with custom values. These values will be passed by Magento to our component. So make sure the keys must match with the property names. Flush the cache and remove static content. Refresh the page. Now we can see the dynamic content has been applied. Next we will create admin configuration. Go ahead and create admin HTML directory and then create system.xml file. Under system node, create a new tab node with an ID knckonfig. Set the label translatable and add the class knckonfig. Specify the sort order 190. The label is gonna be know the image. Now create the section node with an ID know the image. Add the label component settings. And the tab should be knckonfig. And now specify the resource no underscore module configuration. Next create group node with an ID general. Now specify the label general options. Now create the field node with an ID title. Specify the label title. Create content field node now. The type should be text area. Next create button text field with ID btn_txt. Now create a select field with title primary button. Based on its value we will specify class name. Specify field source model.
Now we need to define AC resource. Go ahead and create acl.xml under etc directory. Specify acl node resources resource with id Magento_backend :admin. Then specify stores child resource and then store settings resource. Specify config resource child. Now add our resource with id no_module :configuration and specify title no damage component. Specify the sorter 60. Now flush the cache. Now open the admin path. Navigate to stores, configuration, and expand the node image. Click component settings and we can see our form loaded. Our next changes are inside the layout file. Now open the layout file. We will replace a template class with our custom class. No module block km component. Create block directory. Now go ahead and create km component block class and extend from template class. Create a new method getConfigArray and it should return an array. Specify the title key, access scope config property and call getValue from it, and specify a path to our configuration. Now the image /general/title. In second argument, specify the store scope. This returns the store view related configuration for current scope. Similarly, specify the content with its path, then btn_txt to get button text. And finally is primary btn. We will use this array to pass to the component, so we get this data on front end and whatever changes from admin side. Now go to the templates and open component.phtml template file. Let's replace this variable command with our km component block class. Now create config variable and assign the config array. Replace the title value with the title config. Make sure to specify inside double quotes. Next, replace the content value with the content config and btn text with the btn_txt config. Its primary key value should be integer and can be placed outside the quotes. That's all. We have all variables with dynamic values in place. Flush the cache. Reload the config page and start filling the input fields. Specify the content. Now specify button text. The content can be in HTML. Save configuration. Then navigate to System, Cache Management, and flash Magento cache. Now reload the page. Changes rendered as expected. Now we have dynamic data displayed on front end. Now go back to admin configuration. Change the primary button option to yes and save the settings. Now flash Magento cache. Switch back to front end page and reload it. The button layout is changed now because primary class is being applied to it. That's all. We have achieved the functionality of passing dynamic variables to a component. Thank you and please subscribe.